On this exciting episode, we encounter a badgered brother, a deadbeat dad, and a buried body. And yet the show producers thought Garrulous Gambler was a good title? What can you do? It's Perry Mason, Season 3, Episode 3, The Case of the Garrulous Gambler. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose here, pretty simple, provide an audio companion to the greatest legal drama in television history, Perry Mason. I plan to do a pod for every episode of the television series, and as time permits, I'll get to those made-for-TV movies too. I'll be working through the series in the order in which the episodes were aired. Each episode, I give you a brief refresher on the plot and compare it with an Earl Stanley Gardner novel, if it was adapted. Then I list some key pieces of trivia before tackling the episode's theme. We'll feature a Perry Proverb, a pearl of wisdom from the man himself before we go to the water cooler where, just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can discuss the ins and outs of the case. But first, to the law library! Each episode in the Law Library, we investigate some legal conundrum in the episode so we can find fresh precedents for future cases. In this visit to the Law Library, we could have discussed a number of legal issues. What are the penalties if a witness disappears? When and how can you bring up a prior or connected crime while trying someone? The judge explains that one pretty thoroughly.
Well, the introduction of evidence of another crime is ordinarily improper. Nevertheless, when it is an inseparable part of the motivation of the crime being tried, the law is that the evidence can be admitted.
I was intrigued, however, by the ins and outs of intimidating a witness. You remember the situation. We get action man Paul Drake, who gets physical with the titular Garrulous Gambler, at least that's my guess, and future Pistons Hall of Fame center Ben Wallace. Wallace responds like the weasel he is and cries foul to the DA. Take it away, Trag.
But Mr. Berger wonders if you're familiar with that section of the Penal Code which covers intimidating a witness for the state.
What did Mr. Wallace say?
That you and Paul Drake manhandled him.
Well, what kind of penalty are we talking about here? The actual charge would be, I believe, witness tampering. In California, preventing a witness or victim of a crime from reporting that crime to the authorities or testifying concerning said crime. Penalties: 1 to 4 years behind bars with fines. Fortunately, Perry and Paul decided to pick on the right witness. Now, let's get to the plot of our episode. The Case of the Garrulous Gambler. For the record, garrulous just means talkative, and boy, have we got a lot of talkative gamblers as the episode opens. There's Johnny Clay with his girl Doris Shackley by his side. Big talking Bill Granger, a man quick with the cards and quick to pull a gun. There's I don't want to be involved, small-time hoodlum Ben Wallace. And then there's born to be a mark Larry Benton. Things go south quickly.
You calling me a cheat?
Take it easy, Granger. He didn't mean to put you on the...
Stay out of this, Clay. This is between myself and Benton. I figure you owe me an apology.
Now, come on, fellas. Let's break this up. Somebody can get hurt.
What do you say, Mr.
I'm getting out of here.
Benton thinks he's killed Granger, and Johnny Clay decides to play this kid like a piano.
The first bite's $5,000.
He give you trouble?
Oh, not a bit. I told him I'd be back tomorrow for the dough.
Nice going, Wallace. If we play this pigeon right, we'll make a fortune.
Uh-oh. Ben Wallace, Johnny, Doris, Bill Granger, all in on the con. But then Big Brother Steve steps in. Bad checks. Uh-oh. Using Paul Drake to keep an eye on his brother. Double uh-oh. Sibling squabble. That's three.
I know he's got some sort of connection with Johnny Clay, and you've been seeing a lot of Mr. Clay lately.
Where'd you pick that up?
A detective named Paul Drake.
So you've been checking on me again.
Look, I just don't want you to get into trouble. Now, what's this Clay got on you?
Why don't you ask this Paul Drake? He seems to know all the answers.
Larry!
Paul kicks Steve Benton over to Perry on the affiliate program, and things start to get interesting. Dig Della's real talk about Oil Man Steve.
Oh, he's a good, solid citizen. Not overly imaginative, but if he thinks his brother's headed for trouble, I'll bet he is.
Not overly imaginative? Burn! Meanwhile, we find out more about pretty boy Johnny Clay, a.k.a. Johnny Bradley, a.k.a. Johnny Two-Timer.
You mean Johnny's here? In Los Angeles?
Yes, but he calls himself Johnny Clay now.
His name's John Bradley. He left me 2 years ago.
By the way, watch the episode and notice that disconcerting face drawn on the wall of the apartment building where Mrs. Bradley lives, presumably drawn by the boys who run past Paul Drake as he enters. I guess that's what counts as LA graffiti in Perryland. Anywho, Perry and Paul lay the smackdown on Doris Shackley verbally, not physically. She's dating a married man.
You don't know what you're talking about. Johnny isn't married.
Yes, he is. His wife's name is Nora Bradley. He deserted her and their child 2 years ago.
That's a lie.
She's living, if you can call it that, at 217 Sinclair Avenue.
No. You're lying. You're lying.
I am sorry, Miss Shackley. I wish I were.
Well, Larry gets the cash back. Surprise! Is the storm blowing over? Hardly. Next thing you know, Steve is holding a murder weapon near a dead Johnny Clay and being held at gunpoint by Ben Wallace, who's garrulous now.
Hold it. Just stay right where you are. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the cops will want to talk to you.
Ben isn't feeling too talkative after Paul lays the smackdown on him.
I'd still like to find out how to locate Mr. Granger.
Well, why don't you ask Larry?
Ben!
Allow me. Weren't you ever taught not to point these things? Let's go, Paul.
Try ice packs. It'll reduce the swelling in no time.
Who are our suspects? Well, Doris Shackley. That's a nope. In fact, she gave Larry the go-ahead to get back the blackmail money. What about Mrs. Bradley?
Did she impress you as the kind who would file a claim for her husband's insurance less than 24 hours after he was murdered?
Did she do that?
Yes, she did.
No, hard luck case. What about Bill Granger? Funny you should ask. Where did that guy disappear to?
Any more ideas, Mr. Wallace?
It was around here somewhere. I told you it was dark that night.
But light enough for you to see Johnny Clay bury a body.
Yes. Why don't we take a look over there?
Lieutenant!
Told you I wasn't lying.
No, you weren't.
That leaves Ben Wallace. He killed both Granger and Johnny Clay. The giveaway?
According to the dry cleaners, the last time this coat was serviced was on the 18th day of the 8th month.
That's correct. August 18th.
Yet we all heard Mr. Wallace testify that Mr. Granger was murdered on the night of August 15th, 3 days earlier. How would you explain that?
I can't. I'd like to hear Mr. Wallace try.
Well, we end with the case of the bonded brothers as Steve and Larry hug it out when Perry implicates Wallace. Back at the office, Della has just one request.
Just once, do you suppose we could get out of here before midnight?
They do make it out of the office by the 12th ring of the bell, but at that point, isn't it already 12:01? I don't know. Does that count? Is that just a technicality? I don't want to quibble. Anyway, we had another episode where Trag put his identifying mark on a non-murder weapon.
Now, Lieutenant, can you identify this object for us?
Oh, yes, sir. That has my mark.
Now, let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. Adela is something about a particular actor or actress in the episode. And a Perry is something we learn about our intrepid hero. Our Paul this episode concerns methods of dry cleaning. Perry cracks open the case by examining the coat of deceased, no longer garrulous gambler Bill Granger. It turns out the coat has been marked by a special pen. Tell us about it, Trag.
That jacket was identified by the cleaners as belonging to Mr. Granger. It bears his mark. No, you can't see it that way. They use an ink that's only visible under ultraviolet light.
My question, is this still a thing? Do dry cleaners use pens to mark up clothing? When was the height of the invisible ink era? Did they quit? Why? That's your Paul prompt. Let me know what you find. Our Della for this episode features none other than Steve Brodie, or as you know him, Ben Wallace.
Oh, I hope you don't mind me helping myself. See, I'm a sucker for flowers.
Here are 10 for Ben. Number 1, Brodie was born in 1919 in Kansas as John Stevenson. Number 2, Brodie changed his name to Steve Brodie as a tribute, allegedly, to the man who claimed to have jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge and survived. That guy's bio is a super fun deep dive. 3, in the mid-40s, Brodie began his acting career. I couldn't find any information about how this dude went from El Dorado, Kansas to Hollywood, California, but he got noticed first in Louis Milestone's 1945 war picture, A Walk in the Sun. Number 4, pretty soon Brodie was in a bunch of noir and western films, typically as a villain. Gotta say, I knew him first as a scumbag private eye from one of my all-time favorite movies, Out of the Past, with Robert Mitchum and Kirk Douglas. He's Mitchum's less talented, more conniving partner.
Beat it.
Look at all the angles. You know wit and you know how far he can reach. So just pay me off and I'm quiet. But use cash. Don't try to pay me off with pitch handed to you with this cheap piece of baggage.
Number 5, in 1947, Brodie starred in the Anthony Mann film Desperate.
Hello, Steve. You're right on time.
Hello, Walt. What are you doing around here?
I'm the boss here, Steve.
Where'll I find a Mr. Reynolds?
Reynolds?
Yeah.
He works for me. He's busy inside.
In this film, Brodie was actually a normal guy getting threatened by the villain Burr. Oh my, how the tables have turned by 1960. It has a very good rep. Check it out. Number 6, in 1949, Brodie starred as a bigoted corporal in Mark Robson's Home of the Brave, a picture that examined racial prejudice in the armed forces. A couple of notes about this. The film stars Douglas Dick, the guy that we looked at last time in the case of the Watery Witness. Also fun, the LA Times in Brodie's obit said, incorrectly, that Brodie received a supporting actor Oscar nomination for his role in this picture. Nope, that year's nominees included John Ireland. He got that nomination for All the King's Men. Ralph Richardson got nominated that year for The Heiress. Brodie, not one of the nominations. Number 7, Brodie starred in crime films with titles like Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye and Armored Car Robbery, and also in lots of westerns on film and on TV, including 9 appearances as a sheriff on The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp. Number 8, his marriage situation is complicated. He was married for a short time in the late 40s to Lois Andrews. She's best known for a Fox film she starred in called Dixie Duggan, where she was the titular star. In the 1950s, Brodie married another actress, Barbara Ann Savitt. They had a son together, Kevin, who became a child actor and eventual director. I say this gets complicated because the LA Times obit I mentioned earlier says that Brodie left behind him a wife named Virginia and that he had another son named Sean and 5 stepdaughters. And I can find no corroborating evidence. And the whole Oscar thing from the obit has me doubting the obit's credibility. So there we go. Number 9, I had to mention this one. In 1975, Brodie got top billing in a goofy sci-fi movie called The Giant Spider Invasion, a pick where his co-star was Barbara Hale. I know the movie because Mystery Science Theater 3000 lampooned it during their first season on the Sci-Fi Channel. And this is what I remember from the film.
You know, when Barbara Hale won her Oscar for this, she made a touching speech where she said, in effect, "Thanks!"
Kevin Brodie, Steve's son, oh, he appeared in the picture too. And then number 10, Brodie died of cancer in 1992, having been a longtime resident of LA's Canoga Park neighborhood. Our Perry for this episode concerns our intrepid hero's reputation. Here's a fun exchange with Doris Shackley.
My name is Mason, Perry Mason.
You're that lawyer, aren't you?
Well, I don't know if I'm that lawyer, but I am an attorney.
Oh, he's that lawyer, is he, Doris? He won't ever be your lawyer, that's for sure. The theme for this episode, broken promises. Man, there's a whole lot of talking in the Garrulous Gambler. And while there's no overt promises being made, they're implicitly there. Promises of marriage, partnership, familial bonds. But they all get broken in this episode. Perry explains why he knew Bill Granger must have been dead.
Well, I don't believe there's honor among thieves.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's much honor at all in this episode. First, Johnny Clay. He abandons his wife and child. 2, he doesn't tell Doris Shackley about the whole wife and child thing. 3, he makes it seem like he cared about Benton while actually blackmailing him. Second, Doris Shackley. She responds to Johnny's betrayal by betraying him to Larry Benton. Third, Larry Benton, this guy forging his brother's signature to get cash. Fourth, Steve Benton, getting a PI to check up on your brother's every move. Is that on the up and up? And then number 5, Mickey Fong. He's supposed to tell visitors that Larry Benton isn't home, then promptly betrays his whereabouts to Perry and Della. Well, at least Berger tries to keep his promise to uphold justice.
The district attorney's office is much more concerned with justice than it is with convictions.
And Perry does his best to get the gang out of the office by midnight. Now, let's hear a Perry proverb. Many's the time Perry disarms a client with a rhetorical question, a proverb disguised as a query. When Steve Benton tells Perry how he's just gotta help his brother, Perry has a rhetorical question loaded and ready to fire.
Mr. Mason, he's in trouble, and I've got to help him.
Isn't it about time he learned to help himself?
Question for you. At this point in the episode, aren't the odds that Larry's going to be the defendant? You get the sense that Perry knows the only way for Steve to learn his lesson, however, is to really get in hot water when he tries to help his brother out, which is exactly what happens. It almost gets him sent to the gas chamber. Perry's not just whistling the Park Avenue beat theme when he offers a rhetorical question. Steve, listen. And now, let's grab a swig from the water cooler.
You know, there is one thing I don't understand.
Go on, Paul.
Each episode in the water cooler, We offer deleted scenes where we imagine some sequences that didn't quite make the episode's final cut. I didn't really have to write that many for this episode because listener Tim Cree is on fire. He offered these first three, which are each hilarious. Number one, Johnny Clay tries to explain to Larry how he has a poker hand with a dozen sevens in it. Number two, Ben Wallace tries to explain that the police not only found the body of Mike Granger under the beach house, but the bodies of a bunch of other poker-playing blackmailers who have been buried under the house over the years. Man, these guys are strictly small time. Number three from Tim Cree. The entire cast explained the continued casual handling of handguns as they are all passed around in this episode, pulled out of pockets, desk drawers, pointed every direction with no regard for safety. That would be a fun supercut video. I'll add two more. One, Bill Granger and Larry Benton have a slug-off instead of a fist fight. A line of whiskey shots they've got it down as a test about who was on the up and up in the poker game. I guess it's easier to be garrulous when you're a gassed gambler. The case of the gassed gambler. And finally, Paul offers Della an ice pack for a screaming headache she's had the entire case because she can't get home and get her sleep. The crew all laugh about it and leave the office for a night on the town. Our Paul prompt from The Case of the Watery Witness concerned Raphael O'Connor. Tony Rayburn gave us this juicy information about Betty Clark's possible father.
In 1935, she seemed to be going around a good deal with some Irish South American.
She may have married Raphael, for all I know. All the girls took aim, but none of them ever got near any of the millions they figured he had. But maybe Lorna did.
What happened to Raphael O'Connor?
He was a revolutionary at the wrong time. Executed, as I recall.
We asked just what revolution. Aunt Mai wrote in to let us know about the connection between Ireland and South America. Apparently, the Irish had a huge impact on Simon Bolivar, the father of freedom in South America. William Ferguson, Daniel O'Leary, Morgan O'Connell, and countless others fought with bravery under Bolivar to end the tyranny of colonial rule. My father wrote in to offer some possible coups or revolutions where Senor O'Connor may have been executed. There was the 1930 Peruvian coup. There was the 1930 Argentinian coup. And then in 1930, there was a Brazilian revolution where liberal reformer Vargas launched a revolution against President Washington Luis. The thing we have to think about is we know that Betty Clark was born in 1935, so O'Connor still had to be alive around then. And if we do a little digging, we find that in 1935, the aforementioned President Vargas was involved in a communist uprising in Brazil in 1935, where Brazilian Communist Party tried to overthrow Vargas, the guy who had come to power in 1930. They failed. There was a huge fallout. My guess is that's where Raphael O'Connor met his doom. How did Raphael O'Connor, if he was a communist, end up with the money-grubbing Lorraine Thomas? A communist in Hollywood? Say it ain't so! As always, I'd love feedback about this particular episode or the podcast in general. Was there something about this episode that you'd like to comment on? Something that you'd like to correct? You can email me at theperrypod@gmail.com. All Perrypod episodes are available via Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. Join us next time as a young George Takei joins the Perry party for the case of the Blushing Pearls. Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!